So, hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. Looking forward to an interesting vlog this week. Just a quick explanation really. The images that you've just seen at the beginning of this video are from something of an unplanned shoot that I did a couple of days ago. I literally went out for a walk and it was windy, there was nothing really going on, so I tried a bit of handheld shooting, and those images at the start of this video are just a few of the images from that little walk the other day. Now today was very much a planned walk. I knew what the weather was going to be like today. I knew it was going to be a little bit bright and sunny with a few clouds, and that's exactly what we've got. So I wanted to use this opportunity to do a few long exposures again and see what we could get out of this. I've come to a location that I've been to many times before. Surprise, surprise, I'm not actually in a woodland for a change, but I've discovered a lake that I quite often come to, a pond just here over my shoulder, and just behind me there's a tree on the very edge of the lake, just kind of hanging off the grass at the edge of the wall there, and the idea was to focus on that tree and shoot a long exposure with a full ND filter on the front of the camera lens so that I could blur the clouds and the water, the movement, and by doing that I give you a little bit of drama in the clouds hopefully and soften that water out. So I'm going to show you the composition now and the settings that I'm using and the kit that I'm using. So I hope you can see that okay. I wanted to use the path of the line of the wall that runs along the side of the pond just to make a leading line into the image, and that would be leading your eye towards the tree just ahead there in the middle of the frame. I've already taken a couple of shots of this and I've tried to bracket my ISO, so I'm shooting at 30-second shutter speed with a 10-stop neutral density filter on the front of the lens, and this allows me then to open the shutter for 30 seconds and gives me that softening of the water and the movement in the clouds that I wanted to show you. On the front of the camera lens I have the neutral density filter right at the very front there, and then just behind that I also have a circular polarizing filter. Now what that will do, the polarizing filter will reduce the glare and the shadows that appear on the water and from the sun in the sky, and so that will just soften those a little bit so it looks as though the highlights aren't blown out in any way, and that's kind of what I'm trying to achieve. But it's quite difficult to do with a long exposure because you don't know how much light is coming into the scene over the 30-second exposure. So that's what the 10-stop neutral density filter is for, and that will basically filter out too much light from coming into the image, so it allows me to shoot for a much longer period of time. I've set the lens up at roughly 21mm or thereabouts, purely and simply because that gives me the best possible composition where I am standing. I could have moved back a few feet, but it kind of slightly changes the composition and makes the tree look too far away in the background. So I've had to stand exactly where I am and then zoom into 21mm rather than 17mm or 40mm or 24mm or whatever I can do on this lens. It is a 17 to 40mm lens, so I could have shot at 17mm wide open, but of course that changes the relationship between near and far, and that's what makes the tree then look too far away from the camera. So rather than doing that, I've set up just here and composed my image like this. So I've taken several shots of this scene now and I've bracketed the ISO with those shots, simply because I can't actually do any focus stacking, because with the neutral density filter on the front of the lens you can't see the back of the screen enough to be able to get focus in the image. So I have to manual focus before I put the neutral density filter onto the front of the lens, and what that means is then my image is already focused up, and then I can put the filter onto the lens and then retime the shutter. So instead of shooting at, for example, a 30th of a second, I'm now shooting at 30 seconds. Now I've taken that image, I'm going to move on to another area now where I can get another long exposure, and this time I want to create kind of a minimalist feel with the exposure, because it's a very interesting scene. I will also be able to use the neutral density filter that I've got on the front of this lens for this shot as well, but in this case what I'm doing is focusing in very tight to a wooden groin within the pond itself, which is over a different pond. So I've got to take a walk over there now. It's only a few minutes walk away, and the idea is to just capture a picture of the softened water by using the movement in the water to blur the movement, but also then to capture the wooden groin in the water in sharp focus during a 30-second exposure, and that should then be a very minimalist image, so you just have the wooden groin and the water, the surface of the water, and it should look good. So for this shot I'm actually by a completely different pond, lake at the moment, and just over my shoulder you can see a series of wooden groins in the water. Now what I'm trying to do is to focus on just one of those with a tight crop and use a long exposure to get the wooden groin itself in sharp focus, but also whilst doing that softening the movement of the water so that the water itself looks perfectly flat rather than rippling with the movement. Once again I'm using that 10-stop neutral density filter to get a 30-second exposure here, and I've kind of played around a little bit with the aperture settings purely and simply because I'm not absolutely certain which is the best image out of the lot. Just as I was taking my last shot over at the other pond, what I discovered was there was a signet which had paddled over to the side of the pond closest to me, and it was paying rather close attention to what I was doing. I decided to beat a hasty retreat from there. On the way over to this location where I am now, I cut through a woodland, which is the quickest route from the last pond to this one that I'm standing at now, and on the way through there I stopped off at a spot that I'd stopped off at 2 weeks ago for a video. On that occasion there was snow on the ground and it was freezing cold, and today, as you can see, there's no snow, blue sky, and it's lovely and warm. So I can't quite work out the British weather at the moment, but hopefully we're moving into the springtime now and going to start getting some much better weather. I'm going to show you these images from today at the end of this video, but in the meantime, if you've enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you on another video very soon.